No. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Alright, let's get this next video started. Alright, let's get into the next video. Actually, I feel like I haven't done a video in days, maybe weeks, maybe months.
No, it was last week when we did our last video.
Oh, crap. Alright, let's get into it.
Laters!
Getty! A ton of popular gameplay mods for Fallout 3 make the game harder in various ways, with more realistic weapon damage or harder enemies, or adding more mechanics the player has to deal with to survive. And this is because past a certain point you're going to need that stuff for the game to be challenging in the slightest. Once again, modders are having to do the developers' jobs for them. The most popular of these, Fallout 3 Wanderers Edition, also adds the ability to skip the opening, because of course it would! Whoever designed this mod should have made Fallout 3! The place where you should be able to expect the enemies and their skills, weapons and armor to really get more difficult is the main story. But the developers had no way of knowing what level the player would be when they were doing the main story, and wanted to make sure players didn't get stuck. So once the Enclave turn up, not only do they engage you in small enough numbers that they're not a problem even at quite a low level, but once you encounter them in greater numbers close to the climax, there's invariably something else shooting at them for you, like Liberty Prime, or the Brotherhood of Steel, or Forks, or the turrets in the Enclave base. So even the hard enemies aren't hard. Well, at least the robots are having a fun combat experience here. It's possible to beat a huge portion of the larger set pieces without firing a single shot, because your allies are invincible and overpowered in order to make sure the plot gets pushed forward. In fact, in the final mission, if you're a melee weapons character, the real challenge is to kill anyone yourself. So you're totally free to take part in the game's story, but don't ever have any influence over it in terms of story or gameplay. So in other words, you're too free and have no choices. Did you get it? It all made sense. There are a couple of areas that are suddenly very difficult. For example, the old Olney sewers I mentioned before are a nightmare mess. The Deathclaws are really powerful, making the area the most challenging one in the entire game, and literally impossible if you went to it early on. The reward is a suit of power armor that's no better than the armor you'd need to be wearing to get to it, which by the way is still overpowered for the entirety of the rest of Fallout 3's world. If you're going to have an area like this, you should probably put it somewhere only late game players can get to so they don't get murdered over and over expecting it to be like the rest of the game. But no, it's just sitting there. Worse off, it's not even level to the areas around it.
HBomberguy, the bomber guy. He's good at this. He's very good at this. So I want you guys to actually go back and play it again, because I know I played through the part and I'm not going to respond directly to it until after I've already played the part.
Obvious.
It's quite complicated. But at the very beginning of the scene,
the player would be when they were doing the main story and wanted to make sure players didn't get stuck. So once the Enclave
I like redundancy. Just say as many crazy things as possible. So again, he mentioned the fact that they did this because, again, they don't know when the player was going to start. If they did start at this location or go to this location at any random time, they can play through it and not have a hard time actually passing it. It makes sense. Any game has it. Think of the Elite Four. The Elite Four in Pokemon.
Copyright claims by Showpro, so if you guys like...
Then he followed up with this with, there's another area in the game that's actually hard. Extremely hard. So, I want you to think about this, HBomberguy. An audience, again, if by chance you guys want to criticize it, perfectly fine. You're wrong. It's okay. Think about this. You're mentioning the fact that a part of the game is extremely easy and a part of the game is extremely hard. That's every game in the history of video games. Every game. There's no game that's all easy, and there's no game that's all hard. It's a sandbox game. It's supposed to be that. Let's move on. I think we should move on. Want to move on? Let's move on.
And I do want to add this in because I know some people are going to bring this up. He did mention the fact that this is in a random spot at a random location in the game. All games have RNG to some degree. If you want people to play a game over and over.
My opinion on this is not an opinion. This is a fact.
Again, you gotta have some type of RNG. Look at Pokemon. Not the greatest example, but
No, actually it is.
It has a huge amount of RNG as far as what Pokemon spawns in different areas. Just give me something else. Give me something else.
the player would be when they were doing the main story and wanted to make sure players didn't get stuck. So once the Enclave turn up, not only do they...
Fine, we're gonna move on. Gonna get another video. Maybe. I don't know. Just find something else to do.